Thank you for tuning in to Sermons from the Car. Thank you for opening up your mind, opening up your heart, opening up your ears and listening. See, in order for us to be heard, we need first to listen. In order for us to see, we first must be able to watch. In order to live a life filled with love, filled with great experiences, one must accept every experience. See, there's got to be a higher level and a frequency that you need to operate on. When it comes down to it, think of levels from 0 and above is higher, and 0 to negative is lower, obviously. That's a really simple way to look at it, as far as just looking at 0 as being the neutrality of it all, the black space, the space without the matter, so to speak. You know, scientists have proved that matter wouldn't exist without energy. So you have energy before the matter. This can be actually statistically, scientifically proven. Down to like a molecular level, so to speak. When it comes down to it, if you find yourself in a negative situation and you latch on to that negative situation, what ends up happening is you bring yourself into further down into a negative mind, so to speak, an energy level harmonized with the planet, so to speak. And that energy can continue to climb down, and it's really only you that can bring yourself up out of that again. Of course, if you're operating at a negative frequency, what ends up happening is the same negative frequencies that are operating around you start to try and come and bind themselves to you. And that's not a good thing, because that will continue for you to bring yourself down on a negative spiral. And then more negative things will happen to you. And you have to get outside of your eyes from that perspective. You have to look at it from a third party perspective. You have to look outside of your own body and observe the circumstance that is happening in front of you, and recognizing it for that negative track in that negative downward spiral. And as you do that, you have the ability at that point to also visualize or concentrate on the positive side of that negative situation and the learning opportunity that presents itself. And in learning that, in seeing that, and learning and observing that from that third person frame of mind, once you recognize that, what ends up happening is you're able to learn from that, so to speak. Your soul is able to transcend from that same negative situation happening. Or you can learn to accept that negative situation for that negative situation that it is, and continue to learn from that and grow from that until ultimately you learn that lesson. If you look for it, you can learn a lot of lessons in a lifetime, and you can learn not so many lessons in a lifetime. What you may do, the further down in that negativity pool, you see it from a face value perspective, right in front of you. never from the third person, never from the observer. I think it's super important that as human beings, because we have the ability to go and look at it from the observer instead of at the forefront of your nose, that allows us that spiritual, that consciousness, that growth. And growth is super important in one's life. I believe that energy, once energy is formed, energy is everlasting. Energy can never dissipate. It continues on and on and on and on, just like the universe. And if that's the case, then that would mean that beyond the shadow of this veil, meaning one's lifetime, at the end of that road, as you start to see that white tunnel, so to speak, that is like going back to the whole, being a part of the whole, but at the same time separate from the whole, as you are now as an energy form aware of your energy form. You can transcend what I'm saying by filling in the dots, filling in the holes, and saying, well, that's actually one soul. I don't prescribe to any one religion. I like religion as a whole, as it creates fellowship and brings people together, so long as that bringing people together is done in a way that resembles, again, that positive frequency, loving intent, the intent to help, to raise one's love and frequency and vibration in this universe. I think that's a wonderful thing, but if you use that intent to bring down people and bring them to a negative place where they're able to then be latched on and attacked by other negative frequencies that are operating at that same level, now you've basically guided and done the wrong thing, as you've brought more people down to that wicked level. And as you're in that level, again, if you're looking at it from face value, just like any animal looks at life from the face value. If that animal happens to have a moment where it's able to observe itself outside of its own mental and physical and right present state of mind, as it does that, what ends up happening is that soul or that energy level will advance and raise its own state of frequency at its base level, causing that to advance the next round when it moves from the physical matter that it is basically possessed or inherited, coming to this matter or physical type world that we live in. So I think it's important in one's life that when you try to, as the observer, you're observing situations and you're letting those situations come about. You're not really trying to control those situations. At face value, you are attempting to control those situations, and you're feeling emotional data, you're feeling physical data, and all of that connects to that energetic data. But when you're looking at it from that perspective, you may find yourself as also using your brain in a way that basically is on this playing field of operating on a negative frequency. It's hard to, I can't really put this one into words. I can't really put this one into words, y'all. Sorry, it kind of escapes the ability to explain this one at this present moment for myself. But as you're stuck in that frame of mind, in that situation, what ends up happening is you don't get to dig yourself out, and you miss the lesson. And as you miss the lesson, you don't get to advance. Now that lesson will come back to you. It will continually come back to you and harm you. And you may get yourself into a spot where you're like, why me? Why does this always happen? Why does this Why me? And then again, what you're doing is you're making your body, you're making your mind, you're making your energy operate at that lower situation. And again, you can't escape that situation. I feel bad for anyone that chooses to go on a negative streak. I feel bad for anyone that chooses to live their life in chaos and basically blame everything else existential on chaos rather than try to observe it from, why is this happening? And how can I defeat this situation? I try to remain optimally neutral by constantly being in that third person state of mind. That way, as the negative or someone operating at a negative frequency comes within my range, whether physically here or energetically here, I'm able to detect it because I'm operating at a neutrality frequency. Or even if I'm raised in my frequency, which I often hope that I'm able to do, and that I don't get stuck in that face value up front at the nose situation where I'm physically affected, emotionally affected, mentally affected. And mentally is the key word, folks, because without the mental, without the brain, without that computer in which you can energetically control it, what ends up happening is that's it. I'm just channeling this information. I don't often think about this information myself, but as I'm channeling it, it comes in waves. It comes in, comes out. It comes in, it comes out. Sometimes it disappears halfway through being in that spot or that mind frame to catch it. I really appreciate y'all listening, and I hope that you found something out of these words, pulled something out of it anyway, that may help you eventually in your own life. Without these contemplations, without these thoughts, I find myself in that why me mentality right up front and present. I think it's important to acknowledge that everyone in this world will always be going and flip-flopping through these moments. Sometimes there's years that have gone by where I've been in that up face, what's happening directly in front of me, and allowing whatever's happening directly in front of me, I'm emotionally reacting to it with my old school mentality. And this old school mentality that I speak upon comes from a very archaic mind frame or frame of mind, where it's like the caveman mentality of being weak in the mind as far as the observer side of situation, where it's really you gotta eat, you gotta have shelter away from the elements. You have to worry about being attacked by predators, but also being a predator yourself. The ability to organize a community. You also need to procreate. All these things embedded into the physical experience of being an animal on this planet. It's all the way down to plants as well. Plants have to eat. Plants more than likely sleep, meaning their digestive systems themselves are going and being slow, and then using their system to suck up the water. It makes the plant larger. The plant eventually creates like its own seed, so to speak. It sends that seed out on a windy day. It touches a similar plant or the same plant. and then it procreates, it creates itself again. What do we have in this lifetime if we can't talk about these things, if we can't think about these things, if we can't concentrate on these things? What do we have? We have violence in the news. We have political turmoil in the news. We've been threatened by nuclear attacks, thermal bomb attacks, energy attacks. We were pitted against nation by nation, racial divide, religious divide, social divide. We have political systems that have no way of actually funneling back any help to the actual common citizen. We have the same government sinking tons of chemicals into our system to kill us quicker. We have an education system that is based on and teaching us to repeat the lies, to basically subscribe to what we're being sold as far as what this is and how we can't really change it or how to change it, which is a slow way that never gets us anywhere because it's designed in a way that can be undone. We're in a constant state of fear. We're being brainwashed. There are hidden symbols and symbology everywhere. There are secret societies meeting and controlling and creating plans to control our lives, to continue themselves to be in power. And why wouldn't you if you were in that situation? I'm sure that whole system is based on fear. It's definitely based on secrecy. What a world we live in. It places the observer or even the physical body at the same time while you're observing. It does place it in a constant state of flux. And it's super important to let those energies be and float through you, so to speak, instead of capturing it. But as you capture it, it brings on depression, it can bring on life contemplation, it can bring on anxiety, it can bring on actual physical ailments as well. Holy smokes, what a crazy concept. What a crazy world. Just want to say thank you so much for listening.